Past, Moore's Law. Intel co-founder Gordon Moore, back in 1965, made the observation in a white paper he released through Electronics magazine that computer hardware will be ever expanding, doubling in computer power every 2 years. This observation was a prediction of the fast development in integrated circuits and became a prophecy that holds true even to this day. He goes into heavy technical speak about materials, heat transfer, and both possible benefits and pitfalls of cramming more and more transistors into smaller and smaller spaces. In his paper, Moore predicted the widespread use of computer equipment, such as personal portable devices and automatic car control, both commonplace today. If you're interested in reading Moore's famous 1965 paper, you can find it in my notes. I have a link to the download.intel.com document. Present, Introduction to Beginning 5.3. Programming isn't all about how much you remember or memorize all the functions and keywords to complete a project. It's about your problem-solving skills, how creative you are with solutions, and in general, how you think. I'm really happy about this because I have a bad memory and there's no way that I could remember all the parts of a programming language. There's no definitive source to learn any programming language, in my opinion, except for the sources through the official organizations that create or support a language. For example, the PHP project on the php.net site run by the PHP group. However, those sources may not be the best for beginners new to programming. Textbooks, classes, or workshops, blogs, forums, and articles are best to start off with for beginners. You can find help and you can actually help others there. You probably know this, but if not, PHP, or PHP Hypertext Preprocessor, is a server-side, cross-platform scripting language run on a PHP engine. It's dynamic or changeable in content each time the page is viewed and can be embedded in HTML. One of the most common servers that support it is Apache, but there's also Internet Information Server, Zeus, and LightTPD. It is open source and used for many websites and programs. MySQL is an open source relational database that's often coupled with PHP to provide a dynamic and secure programming application capability. What I mean by a relational database is a tabular database where data objects are organized into tables. By the way, I myself develop on Windows on XAMPP, which is an extended Apache, MySQL, PHP, and Perl programming package that is free to download for anyone to use and develop on. This is only temporary though, since I want to familiarize myself with both Linux and Mac development. Some developers work in the command line interface for executing PHP scripts, especially when entering SQL commands. For Windows operating systems, you enter the command prompt by running cmd or pressing Windows plus the R key, then typing cmd, then OK. For Linux applications, you would go to Accessories, then Terminal. For Macs, you would double-click the Applications, then Utilities, then Terminal app in the Finder program. If people want to dedicate a session on covering the command prompt, I'm definitely game, since this is very important to know. Please contact me if you would like for me to go over this. All of the code for Beginning PHP 5.3 can be downloaded through the rocks.com website, and I have a link to that in my notes as well, in Notes 2. Chapter 1. PHP is the fourth most popular programming language behind Java, C, and C++. Namespace support in 5.3 lets you avoid naming clashes across different parts of your application or between libraries. So names can be used in its namespace without conflicting with other namespaces. The goto operator. This is an operator that jumps to a specific line in the same code or file inside of functions or methods, for example. It may make the code harder to read and understand, and so should be used only when necessary. A common use for the goto operator is in place of a break operator in a switch statement or a loop, or instead of try, catch, throw statements. The syntax is to write the line goto label name, and then at the point called the following, label name, do something here. Here doc and now doc syntax. They're both used for handling whether single or double quotations are used for really long strings, like for paragraphs. Here doc delimiters output inside of their strings the values of the variables that are in it, as well as escape sequences such as for the new line and tab tags. They are the equivalent of using double quotes, and the delimiter is usually written in all caps like constants, which will be covered later. Now doc outputs their strings as they are literally stated. For example, if you want to output to the browser an example of a block of a script, use the now doc syntax. They are the equivalent of using single quotes around your string. Its delimiter is surrounded by single quotes. Both here doc and now doc syntax will be covered in my chapter 5 notes. Shorthand form of the ternary operator. As if the ternary statement wasn't concise enough, this version of PHP makes the statement even shorter. Instead of writing it as final outcome, question mark, one possibility, if not another possibility, you can just omit the middle possibility, like so. Expression 1, question mark, colon, expression 3. Alternatives to PHP, such as Ruby on Rails, Perl, and Java, all have their pros and cons. But PHP has been and is still one of the most popular server-side scripting languages out there. Chapter 2, grabbing your tools to do the job, or installing the server/language and engine/optional database system. In order to run PHP, you always need a server, the installed language and engine, and a browser. Databases are not necessary unless you will be storing and retrieving data. For packages, it's best to read up on them beforehand and watch tutorial videos or find reviews before installing it. Some kinds of servers, like I said, are Apache, Zeus, and IIS for Windows. Now for the good stuff. Coding. Create 2 files, saved as embed.php and separate.php respectively. For any and all files that have any PHP code in it, the extension that file must be saved as .php in order for the browser and PHP engine to render it properly from the server. PHP open and close tags. Less than, question mark, PHP, space, question mark, greater than, and semicolon are the 3 sets of characters that every PHP programmer sees for the first time. The open and close PHP tags surround or house all PHP scripting code. Semicolons ends each statement or command you use, which makes it clear to the engine where that statement or command ends. Echo and print are keywords that sends output to the browser. Strings are surrounded by quotes. We will learn what strings and variables are next week. One of the functions we will learn about, date, is very important. You will be using this function a lot in PHP. Please remember the parameter limitations and proper usage of this function. For the parameter, a string making up the date and or a time to be outputted, you can use within this string the following characters. D stands for the day, M for the current month's number, Y for the year, G stands for the hour, I is for minute, S is for seconds, and A will output an AM for times before noon and PM otherwise. To display the word equivalent for the month returned, you can use either a switch statement, an if, else statement, or another mechanism coded to have the word equivalents retrieved. We'll discuss these statements covered later in the book in further videos. Here's an example of the embed.php and the separate.php files that we will use to see how PHP properly functions. This is also a good test to see if your server and PHP engine is working properly on your development environment.